So this wouldn't be the first podcast episode to talk about the world of work and marketing changing constantly. We've been faced with a whole load of things: technology, cost of living crisis, needing to do more with less. These are, certainly challenging times. So how do organizations mobilize their strategy, people, and technology to be successful in the world? So delighted to have Dave and James with me today, and we're going to chat about this topic. How you doing, gents?
Good, thanks, Chris. Good, thanks for having me back on after a couple of years, but it's good to speak to you again.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
To start off with a bit of an intro, guys. So, you want to start off, Dave?
Ultimately, I'm the Chief Strategy Officer at a marketing consultancy called Curated. My background's in performance marketing, so more advertising than strategy. But as I've gone through my career, I've noticed the importance of strategic planning to make your advertising and your marketing perform better. So this topic is really close to my heart because it's about how you can optimize other things apart from your marketing plan or advertising to drive business value. And this is obviously I can introduce that I've been working with James, who's really helped us accelerate that part of our offer. But James, I'll just tee you up. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you for that. So, quite a long career in marketing, bit of sales at the beginning, and like to think that I've got good shared interests across the two. But I run an agency, work very closely with Dave and the wider team of his. We primarily support CRM, HubSpot, and anything to do with parts of the topics I think we're going to be digging into today. But really appreciate being here as well, Chris. I didn't quite say that at the beginning, so thanks for the invite.
No, it's good. It's good to have you guys. It's good to chat about this stuff. Busy times, but it's good to take a bit of a step back and talk about this kind of stuff. So to kind of re-tee it up, we've got situation of kind of, let's say, chaos. I think it's fair to say that that's a useful word to use in this situation. Businesses and individuals facing elements of chaos, and then there's people, the strategy, people, and technology as how do you get that right to make your organization a success. So, yeah, who wants to start off? Let's chat about this.
Yeah, to be honest, so this comes from I've probably spoken about, and I've probably spoken and written about this in sort of many formats. But I'm this great believer that strategy never sleeps. I think the long gone are the days where there's a set strategic plan, you implement that without any chaos or friction or dynamism happening in that piece. So you've got to have this, I suppose, headspace where strategy never sleeps. So your process is always evolving, always changing, and I think that's really important. I think some people go for silver bullet mentality, and I think this is one of the things that we're trying to challenge. Definitely myself and James is when we go into organisations, and I'll let James explain a bit more about some of the scenarios that we get involved in, but about okay, we can implement a piece of technology, say a Sitecore or a HubSpot, any Salesforce, and it's going to solve all my problems. Or what we're going to do is we're going to load up the team. We're just going to scale the team, and everything's going to be fine. But that's just not the way the world works, and we see so many of those problems happen and occur because the first part of that process is not done right. And what it does, it just causes friction on the journey within the business in terms of how they implement that plan. But also that friction echoes into the way that you're looking to sell services and products. And that's the biggest failing that we see in discovering. James, I think you've seen many scenarios of this. I think you'll be well placed to explain some of what you hear in the process.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a good sort of starting point, to be honest. I mean, we sort of labelled it. It's not a word we've invented, but we've labelled it kind of revenue ops, also known as RevOps. But our take is actually going beyond what RevOps does out of the box, which is very much around marketing, sales, and then the success part of the journey. We believe it actually goes a bit further than that. Every employee, to a degree, has some involvement in the revenue operations. whether that's HR managing the team of those that run it through to the individual sales team, the marketing team, and then, those that onboard customers that buy services and products. And I think I love that plug about the chaos. I think there is some fear at the moment. I mean, AI is the talking point. It's like the new cryptocurrency, if anyone's aware of that. And there's a lot of fear around, will it take my role? Will it burden or make me look as though I'm not as good as I used to be or should be, etc. And then there's that other side of things, which is really around privacy, which we completely endorse. But obviously that's creating a lot of friction around what marketing can see, measure. And I think revenue ops gives an element of hope around, actually, you can still work in a very similar capacity. You just got to do things a little bit differently. And that difference is around your processes, the people that are involved, and technology. So I think what we're seeing still is there is separate silos across businesses. Marketing work in their own silo, sales work in their own silo, and the operations, the customer success equally. And that is where business is going to not succeed, or not at least grow to the areas that they want to grow, because the customer is going through a friction experience and maybe frustrating. So they said, well, I'm interested in this, but the sales rep's talking to me about that. And that, I suppose that's really the bits that we're trying to kind of get into the market now, that embrace chaos, AI, privacy, technology as an evolution solution rather than a burden solution.
I think it's important to note as well, and I think this is a playback to the last pod that I was on, Chris, was that how we'd shifted our approach to become from moving from an agency that was played around in a lot of what I'd call red ocean, become a bit more of a commoditized sell. But I generally believe by, say if you're saying if you're advertising over here and then you're shifting from strategy development to diagnosis, we're adding a lot more value to what our clients and brands are getting by going through this process. Because what we're ultimately looking to do, we will eventually fix our marketing problems by going through this process, but we're also fixing our business problems head on. And I think in this day and age of chaos and what clients value, they're looking for experience, they're looking for partners that can fix these problems. I think marketeers, they love flashy, creative campaigns. That's the nice stuff. Like, don't get me wrong, there's nothing better for me than delivering like an award-winning brand campaign. But you need the architecture, you need the bricks in the wall, you need the foundation to make sure that that's going to really work. And this is why it's imperative, I think, and even more in this day and age of chaos, that brands and businesses work with partners and come in and solve this. And not even saying that they need to, but potentially work with partners. This is stuff that they can do themselves and work through in discovery workshops, formats. And it's just understanding about, say if you're building, you've all probably seen the film Moneyball, and it's about building a team around the areas that are necessary to work. And so some of that you're bringing in-house, some of it you might have on loan, so partners and stuff to have success at that time in your process. I think that's really, really important takeaway from this premise of revenue operations, building the right team. And I'm not being funny, if you've got the right team, the right process, then you can make technology do great things by putting humans in the loop of that.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, good. Yeah, this could be a mini series. It really could. But I think I think what you said, James, about silos. That is classic problem, isn't it? And it's about, in the kind of our green room chat, you talked about connecting those silos, because it's not like you're going to be able to go into an organization. Certainly, organizations bigger than 15, 20 people, to actually go, right, everyone is like working together as one. So this thing about connected silos, I think, is really, really interesting. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, I think there's lots of angles that you can take this. I'll kind of use two examples 'cause like you said, there could be a whole series on this, and I know don't want to run away too soon and too quickly. But I think there's two areas that I think there's a focus on. I think it's one is around the connection of the customer journey. Okay, so it's when does a lead become qualified? When does sales get involved? What does sales need to know? And then once sales is completed, the handover to service or operations, and ensuring that what they've bought they're getting served and you know to the expectation. So that's the connected silo from a journey perspective. The other scenario is very much around the people and the processes. So, like everything, as we live longer, we learn things, we make mistakes. You don't want to keep making the same mistakes. I think it's putting connected silos in place that allows you to learn the gaps and continue to evolve. Especially if you're a small team, you're wearing many hats. You are going to grow as a business if you've got a good product, good market fit, and you then get to a point where you're like, well, when do I employ additional people? Can the business afford it? So having something like a RevOps process in place and connecting the silos will allow you then to learn the areas that you're not great on, focus on fixing those before making judgments on hearsay or what you think. So those are kind of the two areas I think we see a lot of problems, that companies sort of kind of get to a point where they're struggling.
Yeah, just to echo you that thought as well, James. I think it comes from our experience of being working in larger agencies in my time when I must say that Brisbane, me and you were working together, we worked quite closely with the creative department, which was a dream. But and sometimes there would be disconnection between departments in that business that just cause friction. And I think it is really important to understand, people's part in that process. And I'll be honest, the relationship we had with many of the departments in business we worked in, worked quite well. But the amount of business we go into, and it's this blame culture, it's this chuckle brothers to me to you culture, and then all that does is cause batons being dropped. If they're getting dropped, then yeah, you never just to use a better term, you never get to that finishing line. So this idea of silos has been one of my biggest frustrations. I think one of the biggest points and one of the biggest motivators for me to take almost embed this service in what Curated do and then work with James is to make sure that we're fixing those problems sort of head on and earlier in the process, because we know we can deliver more business value, delivering better products, delivering customer satisfaction. If customers are satisfied, you can bring more revenue in the door. It's it's as simple as that. There's a lot of steps within there, but that is how you develop commercial value. And so you need to fix your internal house before you can really go and make the external side work harder for you.
On that thing about fixing, so we've touched on some of this already. So some of the things we talked about is, identifying like Moneyball style, using data as much as you can to identify roles with capabilities. So that's about realigning people with the roles that they are good at and they are really bought into, and focusing on potential of those employees to grow into roles. But then there's a thing about how do you bring people in at the right time, because either you kind of develop your internal resource, rearrange it, or you bring a whole team in as contractors or full-time hires, or you bring an agency in. So let's think about kind of this thing about kind of it's a bit of an agile approach to bringing people in at the right time.
Yeah, no, exactly. I totally. So you hit it now on the head around agile. For me, it's organizational agility, and I'm a great believer in. And then this is what you can learn a lot from working with agencies or external partners to say, ultimately what you're looking to do. Okay, if you've got a hypothesis that a service or an offer is going to work for your business, I don't always say in-house in that whole team is going to work. I think what you need to do is you need to test it and run it through with. So, for instance, scenario curated work with James and his business Bound on sort of technological CRM solutions. Ultimately, what we're trying to do is drive retention, better retention for business for going through that process and making them more efficient at their job. What we realized is, okay, well, let's partner, let's make this work. My market tested it, it worked, it resonated with the audience, but we've we've made a decision in terms of curated market fit that actually what we're doing is we'll continue working with James and Bound on delivering that process. But some businesses may work with an agent. So if you're talking about brand side or partner side, they might then work with they might market test this and then look to on board once they've proved this works. And that can all be found in the data, because what they can do is say, okay, we run that project at X profit margin. Our NPS score on this was X. So I feel like, okay, that's validation enough that we can then make a business case to bring in a team. I always think, yeah, use partners, use agencies before then going the whole hog. But you can quickly test this stuff. And I'm the biggest believer in sort of building these strategic partnerships to really make RevOps work for you. And again, on this, it's also about this premise about knowing who you are as a business as well. So don't try and be the Swiss Army knife, be the scalpel, and then ensure that you're working with other scalpels to make your solutions superior. And I think that's a really important mantra to live by.
Yeah, it reminds me of a conversation I had previous episodes with Tatiana Oppenhaus, who's head of global employee brand at Miro, and she very much took that kind of agile approach where she brought contractors in at the right time on, if there's a big strategic project, and actually by doing that, she had like matter specialists getting involved. Actually, that was great for the individuals in her team that were permanent full-time hires to actually learn from that person. So that's kind of I really like that approach, and that kind of, when you talk about that, reminds me of that approach.
There's one other area that sometimes often gets forgotten, and that is automation. There's clearly a lot of repetitive tasks and things that a lot of the internal teams does, and I think working with like a partner that specializes in automation and has that kind of outside look in the box view to identify that. And often the case is that one particular person's job may have 3 hats of different things they have to do. One of those is repetitive elements. So I think don't be afraid of automation. Do consider it, and then use that as a benchmark really on the gaps that you may need to fill. Because let's be honest, services and products, whilst the prices might change, ultimately you are delivering a solution to a need, want, or pain. There's going to be some commonalities between those need, want, and pains. Not everything, unless you deliver bespoke products and services, but there will be some commonalities between what you're delivering.
I totally agree. Yeah, no, I'd be totally. Yeah, I think I'm a great believer if tech and AI is harnessed well, you can create a more efficient and effective organization. Because I see a lot, like you say, even elements of the team we've curated. What we've done is we've tried to outline, okay, what do our clients really value, and ensure that we've got human strategic intuition on those areas. And then anything that's sort of more repetitive, whether it's reporting, whether it's content subbing, whether it's stuff like that isn't as valuable to our end client. We're looking at ways to make that more efficient, because ultimately, I've spoken to a few CMOs, CPOs, CCOs about this, and what do they value in this day and age? I think it's the strategic experience individuals can give them. So what we're trying to do within our organisation, I think should go through many organisations, it's probably something that's happening already, is ensuring that our people are the value, and that they're harnessing technology in the right way. And this is, like I said, we've talked about strategy, people, technology. If you get the strategy and people right, then the technology can just elevate and lift what you're doing within the organization.
Goes back to what you were saying in the beginning of, about the silver bullet.
Yeah.
As much as it would be nice to have something that solves that problem, even if it does, it may actually be solving the wrong problem. If you roll it out and you go, it's been a great success, it is actually, well, hang on a minute. Is it? Is it right?
Yeah, no, you're totally right. I think that's a big exercise that we look to achieve because Curated, set up as a performance marketing agency 8 years ago, and what kind of briefs were we responding to? It's like, oh, can you run some PPC? Can you run some social marketing? Can you create this campaign for us? But that wasn't answering the problems of the business. So we look at it, we go through, okay, now what are either your commercial goals or what are the problems you're trying to solve on behalf of your customers? What's the job to be done here? What's the pain points we're trying to solve? Map that then to the communication and then the channels we deliver across. And since doing that, you'll immerse yourself more in the organization. And actually, from a longevity point of view, with working with clients, it embeds you a lot more in their business. And it's been a game changer for the way that we work. And it's more rewarding, so much more rewarding to look at it through that lens. And don't get me wrong, some of these problems are really hard to solve. They are. And there's a lot of head scratching. You might put your head in the sand for a little bit, but they need to be solved to really drive exponential value.
Tell you what, let's finish off with, a few kind of takeaways. If someone's going into their next few meetings, something that they should have maybe as an agenda item, but also, what can they start doing themselves to turn the dial more towards what we've been talking about?
So I'm a great believer in doing some kind of internal rediscovery. And this is simple for businesses to run this, but what I would look to do and advise is that they have a member of each department group in the business. So you have a representative in marketing, sales. You might have someone that's a bit more, potentially a bit more on the shop floor, a bit closer to customers. So you got a good understanding from each part of the business, and run a rediscovery process where you go through customer understanding, you go through content brand understanding, you go through your channel mix. So what would the customer journey, the process, the flows, what you're trying to achieve, what the commercial goals, what the competitors are doing out there as well. So are we losing any ground here? What's the context of the market? So again, this idea of chaos. What's the chaos that's going on? Are there threats and opportunities in there? And then, what are we looking to change within the process? And go through, do a half-day workshop and categorize stuff on those 7 points. And then make some very clear actions on, I'd say, what I'd call 3 horizons, which is sort of a known McKinsey model. What can we change today? What can we change tomorrow? And what do we need to change in the next year? And then you'll be able to, having that good group of people to go through that process with, you'll have representation from each part of the business. And I think that's the quickest way, without having outside or external influence, to really get back and reflect on what you need to do as a business. And I advise, doing these kind of sessions. Well, I try and do them quarterly with our clients, but I try and do them at least twice a year. I think it's really important.
I would actually take an argument around being quite clear on service level agreements between departments, because I think this concept of the the multiple silo effect that a lot of departments face, where they don't communicate. I think if you were to round up key stakeholders of each department, doesn't have to be revenue operations focused. It could be, business operations, could be to a degree senior management, depending on the makeup of your business, obviously. But I think what's key and clear is that to eliminate the chaos around misinformation, loss of information, friction-based customer experiences, is that come together in a workshop, very similar to, maybe you could bolt it onto the workshop you suggested there, Dave, and just draw out a list of requirements. If you were to give me information about a lead, as in sales, what's the minimum information you need, and have that as an agreement. Add service level agreements around it. Hold each other accountable for that. That will force the business to ensure that they work together, and have breach triggers. If it's not done in a certain way or at a certain time, have that breach notification sent to more senior members of the team so that you could do something about it. So that's something you guys as a collective internally could do without necessarily needing a partner or a third party. And then if it is a struggle, and you're drawing out blanks, then maybe there is a sign that there are issues there that you need to address. If you're not all on the same page, then maybe that is where the issues lie. So I think it's a good exercise to get around the table, all agree what's the minimum viable information and information that's required to progress as a department, and then all agree what the SLA is between the departments.
Well, great stuff. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, James. It's been a good chat. And you have a good day, and see you later.
Yeah, enjoy the sunshine. Catch you later, guys.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me.